is this happening? How can the Trump Corporation just walk in and collapse the whole rule-based order of the United States in 6 months? Defy Congress, gut public services we voted for, redirect hundreds of billions of our money to fund a bounty hunter army, rifling through private tax records without warrants so they can track and hunt non-white families, kidnap people at courthouses, torture refugees and tourists, and back a genocide in Palestine, forced starvation of millions of people, mass murdering children. How is this happening? I thought we won World War II. I mean, I guess they've made it painfully clear this isn't about paying taxes or coming in the right way or Christian values or bringing peace anywhere, nor any semblance of following any kind of law or principle. So how are these lying barbarian hordes allowed to do this? Certainly against the will of the majority here and all over the world, violating any semblance of decency, and yet cops don't stop it, courts don't stop it, mayors, governors, congresspeople, media just carrying on with their gossip. Aren't there safeguards, checks and balances that prevent ethnic cleansing in 2025? No. And there never have been. Not in most of so-called Western civilization. Our last attempt at establishing some basic human rights was 60 years ago when Dr. King secured voting rights and ended legal segregation during the Johnson presidency. That's when he called out the anti-Christian religion of America, its unholy trinity: militarism, classism, and racism. And he had all the data to back it up. His own Kerner Commission, a bipartisan group, warned that America had two societies, one black and one white. And they gave Johnson the roadmap on how to fix social unrest and reduce crime, solving generations of abuse of power, of over-policing and an out-of-control prison system, incarcerating hundreds of thousands of people a year, mostly poor. And the report said what to actually do: invest in housing, schools, jobs, all the common sense policies Roosevelt initiated that had created the first majority middle class in the history of the world in the first place. And how'd they pay for it? They taxed the ruling class to invest in the welfare of the people, as so charged by the preamble to the United States Constitution. But instead of continuing that trend of trying to make America great and orderly and stable and thriving, Johnson poured billions into the Vietnam War and became the first president to arm Israel with advanced weapons, locking in the template for more ethnic cleansing home and abroad, while ignoring the economic inequality that's collapsed every other society in world history when it falls victim to that cult of militarism, classism, and racism. And then came 1971. And Ronald Reagan, governor of California at the time, who had openly supported apartheid in South Africa, he was fuming when China got admitted to the United Nations because African nations had tipped the vote in their favor. And so in a taped call that you can listen to with Nixon, Reagan called African delegates monkeys and said they were still uncomfortable wearing shoes. And Nixon thought that was hilarious and joked with him about African nations still being cannibals. And then behind closed doors, Nixon made it clear who he thought the justice system should target next. Quote, "The whole problem is the enemies, the people who are against us. We have to use the agencies to go after them." End quote. And he ordered his aides to draw up the enemies list and screw them with audits and prosecutions and investigations. And he demanded a compliant IRS commissioner. He said, quote, "I want to be sure he is a ruthless son of a, and that'll go after our enemies and not after our friends." End quote. And Nixon's abuse of power led to his impeachment. But Congress dismantled Nixon, not the machine. They weren't mad at the machine. They were mad the machine was being used on them. The machine itself they kept building. First Nixon, then Reagan doubled down on funding Israel, now making it the single largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid, which continues to this day, because in their worldview, like their predecessors, whiteness was order, and the global South was there to be managed and exploited. Meanwhile, here at home, Reagan slashed taxes for the rich, gutted the public programs that had created the middle class, creating rampant homelessness, and unleashed SWAT teams and military rifles into American neighborhoods, and inequality doubled. While the prison industrial complex boomed, climbing to record levels, and now we were incarcerating more people than any other country on earth. Because the prison industrial complex doesn't exist to fight crime, it's there to feed off of it. Dr. King explained how it works, this very interconnected system. Militarism provides the violence needed to enforce corporate control, not over the nation, but over the world. because wealth has no country and no borders. And racism is the force that gives them their strength, because as long as we're busy scapegoating each other, separate, we can be exploited by those cult leaders at the top. That's the classism part. And that's why not a single administration, Democrat or Republican, since Johnson ever established use of force guidelines, safeguards against the brutal policing of the people of the United States. And to this day, none exist. That's why they can disappear people off the streets, because they've been doing it since day one. Now, some lawmakers might be extremist in their presentation, uncouth. Some are more moderate, more eloquent, but nearly all follow the same religion, a cult whose crimes and horrors will haunt us to extinction. If we don't start uniting and make dismantling their control over the 8 billion of us who know better a priority, this won't stop. It'll spread. Because as the middle class continues to shrink and cost of living skyrockets and quality of life goes down the drain, angrier and increasingly propagandized populations will focus their scapegoating on the wrong 1% and keep handing over power to even more primitive barbarians than this drooling frat house of incompetence that we call the Trump Corporation. So if you're seeing this now for the first time, please adjust your screen. This is not a violation of norms. This is the norm and has been. Not just for 250 years, not for 400 years. This is the single conflict that's cursed humanity since it built its first city, and a few greedy extremists tried to figure out what ideology they could use to convince everybody to hand over the keys to the kingdom. And now that so many more of us are awake to what our nation is and what our world is, we must take constructive action steps to change it, because the alternative is unthinkable. We must do what we can and what is right to stop what's happening in Palestine now. Or not only will more innocent people starve and be murdered, but this operation will spread. This has to be a global awakening. Nations are new ideas. They're only a few hundred years old. They've always been imaginary. Lines drawn around our towns and cities. It's cities that are real. And in 2025, with the technologies we've created and grown entirely dependent on, we cannot survive without the cooperation of our cities. And this is really up to us, because in the real world, the cities are ours. These are our streets. And all the people are our people. And all the children are our children. And they're counting on us.